The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, guys, we are going to get started in just a couple minutes here. Give everybody probably about 2 more minutes to get everything downloaded and logged in and everything like that, and then we'll get started, okay?
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome.
I can see Charles mouthing. Can you hear me now?
Charles, can you hear us?
Technical difficulties.
That's okay. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. He's on an engagement right now, too. So.
Is he really? Oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
I wonder where that massive room came from. I don't have a room that big. I had one engagement. They put me in the basement, like in the basement, down a hall, lots of empty rooms. I was kind of terrified.
That's fun. Did you feel very welcomed in the basement?
Yes, it was awesome. That's okay. It was nice and cool. It was, a couple layers below the earth. It was awesome.
Awesome. That's always ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to be right back. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, good morning and welcome to our latest webinar, SolarWinds Basics and Beyond, Portals, Certs, and THWACKtivity. So it's brought to you by Loop One, and at Loop One, we believe that the truth is in sight. You just have to use a different lens to see it. For those of you that aren't as familiar with Loop One or our webinar series, we use them as a platform to highlight what we call engineered insights. And by that, we mean our expert methodology to looking past the noise and finding the data that really matters, and then giving you direct visibility to it. We like to refer to this approach as the Loop One mind, and by that we mean the collective intelligence of our team, our network of clients, and our partners. We truly believe that every time someone joins the Loop One team, we all get smarter. So with that, we are going to jump right in and start gaining that knowledge. A few small housekeeping details. There are 2 ways to ask questions throughout the webinar. There's a question mark on your control panel where you can submit questions throughout the webinar itself, and that we'll answer those during our Q&A period at the end of the webinar. We'll try to get to all of your questions, but we are logging all of them. So if by chance we run out of time and we don't get to your question, we will have someone from the Loop One staff follow up with you and make sure that answer gets to you. You may also use the chat feature on your dashboard for more general questions or if you have issues during the presentation. We are recording this webinar today, and we'll post it on our YouTube channel, and all virtual attendees will be emailed a copy of the recording following the webinar. And finally, we'll be doing a few polls throughout the webinar, so I'll throw one up real quick so everyone can get comfortable with them, and I'll give you guys a few seconds to answer this poll, and we'll get a judge of the product suites you guys are using. So I'm going to go with this one right here. And I'm going to launch that poll. All right. Looks like everyone's using NPM and SAM. That's no surprise there. All right, that looks pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and close that poll. Hopefully everyone is comfortable with that technology. So thank you for that. Well, you're in for a real treat today. We have 3 of our very own Loopsters joining us for this presentation. First of all, we have Mr. Charles Hunt, one of our professional service engineers, Thwack MVP, an all-around engineering rock star. And then we have Mr. Stephen Clausen, our in-house program analyst, Thwack MVP, and I'm going to just brag on him for a second. He won both first and second place and was awarded a title of an SDK superstar during a build-out competition earlier this year on Thwack. And then last but certainly not least, we have Ms. Crystal Taylor, our managed service team lead, that has spent the last nearly 8 years of her career becoming a SolarWinds expert and has helped countless people utilize the products to their fullest. So thank you guys for joining us and welcome.
Thank you.
So we are going to start off with our Sdp discussion. So panelists, I'm going to turn it over to you and let y'all talk about your experience with Sdp and certifications a little bit.
Awesome. Okay. Who wants to start? Me? Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
I have taken and passed all 3 of the current SCP exams. The design exam is still in beta right now, but it is an exam you can take and pass, and they are working on even more SCP exams as I hear it. So none that have been released, and I know there's at least one other one that's in beta currently. So once those are ready to come out, they will definitely be releasing them, which is great. So my experience with the exams, there's 2 things I feel like need to be talked about with the exams, and that's the experience with the online proctoring, and then that is the experience taking the exam itself. So if anyone has had any history with the SCP exam, there previously was an SCP exam that was just one exam for all of the SolarWinds products, and now they've broken it down into multiple exams. And the one exam for all products was kind of all-encompassing and more of a network management software, generic, less SolarWinds specific exam that you could take and pass. And it was one that was, 3 to 5 years. It was 3 years at first, then it was 5 years for expiration. And they've now broken it down to kind of make it a little bit more specific so that the NPM exam is about network performance management and the SAM exam is about the server side of things. So it's really intriguing and it's interesting, and it's been great for me personally to see them kind of develop this, and it's exciting. All these new ones that are potentially going to be coming out and they're working on is very exciting for someone in our line of work to kind of see how it's developing and make sure that we keep up to it and keep up to date. And it's especially important with a software like SolarWinds where it's constantly changing. And if you are a SolarWinds admin, or maybe you just work at a company that uses SolarWinds and you're their primary SolarWinds person and you're trying to become better with the product so that you can use them better in your environment. And I could see how it'd be extremely useful for both situations where you would definitely want to at least go through this study material and better familiarize yourself with your products and your environment so that you can utilize those. And then I do want to also talk about the online proctoring. So there's been a lot of different experiences with the online proctoring. They have moved from a in-person proctor where they used a third party that was Prometric, and I think they had a different one, and that was fine. I mean, it's just as you would expect an in-person proctoring to go. They got little cubicles, and you'd go in, you sign in, you don't have anything, you don't have to worry about it. The online proctoring has been interesting and varying experiences. My experience was the proctor was extremely strict. They got to check all your walls, and it was a little bit, I couldn't have a drink on my desk, things like that. So you have to be kind of careful with that kind of stuff. And it was an interesting experience, and I don't know that I would like to do an online proctored exam again, but I probably will need to. But it's not, for a person like me that works from home, you have to go clean your office and make sure there's nothing on the walls that has writing on it and that kind of thing. And it was not as much fun. But the exam itself is not any difficulty to take, I would say, as far as like the online proctoring goes. Just the proctoring itself was interesting. And I can talk about the specific exams, but do you guys want to talk about your general experience with the exams before I go to specifics?
I think so.
Sure.
Charles and Stephen, either one of y'all, if y'all want to talk about the different exams or your experience, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. So just what Crystal was saying about the proctoring, my office has never been so clean. Even though there's stuff behind me now, I've kind of reaccumulated. But yeah, no Post-its, no drinks, no nothing, just completely clean environment. And some of our engineers have actually just said, I'm just going to take myself to another place that's not got a bunch of stuff in it, and that worked really well. I think one of our engineers took it in a closet. Was that Jake? That was awesome. So yeah.
Yes.
So they're pretty meticulous about it. And on one hand, it was like, okay, this is kind of intrusive. My office is my space. Like, obviously, I'm not going to get the answer from my bobblehead, although it does inspire me sometimes when I'm working on solar. I think it lends more weight to the certification because you can kind of regale people with your stories of, the remote proctoring experience, and it puts more weight back on a remotely acquired certification that you kind of would take with a grain of salt anyway. Whereas if you go and take like a CCNA, for example, you go to a facility and you do your testing, and it's very, strict. And then you hear it, the SolarWinds certs are remotely acquired, and it's like, oh, okay, well, you probably could, open book it.
But you can't.
It's like, no, let me tell you about the process. And then now we're back on the same level of trust or authenticity as you would have from like a locally proctored exam. So I feel like it's necessary. I think it puts it back on the level of like a CCNA or an MCSE or whatever the other, all the other certs are. So I think it's important, but like I said, it's a little bit weird if you've never done it before. But I mentioned remote proctoring to somebody who had never done any SolarWinds anything, and apparently it's a common-ish thing for testing in general. So we're not the only people jumping through those particular hoops. Nice. But I had a very pleasant person. I think they really appreciated that I had completely gutted my office, and I wouldn't have done that had I not talked to Crystal beforehand. So I'm sure if I had done it, they would have been like, okay, move that. But it was work. So thank you again, Crystal, for that.
Yes.
And Stephen, I kind of just want to touch on your point that you had just made, just about the proctoring process itself, and what we've heard from some of the SolarWinds people that actually were on the redesign of the exams, is that they are trying to kind of legitimize it with this new proctoring process. So that's definitely a big part of where that comes into play.
And I think it's important, and I think SolarWinds has done a really good thing by absorbing that cost. Because I mean, if they were just throwing a survey on the internet and saying answer 25 questions and we'll send you a cert, it's not going to cost them anything. But building that into the cost, I think it shows that they're serious about it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
And Charles, are you having a little bit of maybe difficulties dialing in?
Can we hear you? Or are you going to be? Nope, we got nothing.
Okay.
He's just going to be eye candy for this one, I think.
Okay, that works for me. Well, before we start talking more in depth about the tests themselves, I'm going to go ahead and put up our second poll, and we're going to see which exams, if any, you guys are interested in, okay?
Okay.
Sounds good.
I love the admonition that we shouldn't vote. I was so ready to click too.
Let's hear the results.
Yeah, so it looks like a lot of people are really interested in the design test that's in beta right now. NPM is another big one, and then SAM. And then it looks like a couple of people are looking at other certifications. I'm not sure that they have any available at the moment, but definitely be on the lookout for other stuff that SolarWinds is gonna put out for these certifications. All right, guys.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk a little bit about that too.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. And actually, I am going to hand over the controls to you, Crystal, so you can talk about the exams and navigate to the SDC areas and stuff like that.
Sure, and we can provide the links to to
Yes,
anyone
absolutely.
who attended, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Do I have any audio now?
Yes,
Yes.
you do.
Hey, there it
Hi,
is.
sir.
I am present.
That is amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, the online proctor experience was quite fun. Had I not had a heads up, I would have been in the same boat as Steven, having to rearrange things. If you can see around me, I work in a multifaceted work area. Basically, I've got about 4 consoles set up around me right now. And it stays that way minimally. So I actually relocated. At one point, I had to cough, put my hand over my mouth, and the proctor came on and said, "Do not cover your mouth." And
Yep.
it was very quick, but they're watching you, and it does give credibility to the online acquired certification. And to me, it's just the next step in the certifications for SolarWinds to raise them to the next level to compete with all the other industry service providers and manufacturers that do have these certifications that are very stringent, very strict.
Yep, I agree.
For sure. For sure. So SolarWinds has published quite a bit of training materials. I don't think that they have published the training materials for the design exam yet because it's still in beta. But you can get most of the information from their scalability engines document as far as like high level kind of what they're covering. A lot of that exam is about kind of designing the environments as you would expect. So it's got things like the limitations of the different pieces of the Orion suite. So you need to know kind of the upper limits of how many polling engines you can have and what modules are supported for the stacked pollers and that kind of information. There's a lot of numbers, ports, and all of that kind of stuff. So the design exam is much more at a high level than like a technical level for how the products operate, and it's going to be more you know, if you're looking to, if a customer is looking to or a person is looking to monitor X, Y, and Z, what products would they need to do that and things like that. So it's a little more generic as far as specifics of the products. Kind of you just need to know basics of what the products do, and then kind of how they scale for larger environments, because it's very much about building out for larger environments and smaller environments and how you would do that kind of thing. So other than that, they do have the NPM and SAM stuff all posted. There's 2 things that we should talk about. One is the community website, which is thwack.solarwinds.com, and they have a SolarWinds certified professionals group where they talk about, this is a post about the exams being live, and there's some things about, you know, what they've got there, what they're looking for out of benefits, any information you might want to know there. And then as well, there's in that group, there's a whole bunch of posts where people are talking about the exams and their experiences with that, and you're more than welcome to look into that information. And the community in general is a great resource for getting answers to questions you might have, to looking for stuff that's already been done so you're not reinventing the wheel, to learning anything like that. So and they have their own webcast events as well, which is all, you know, in here. So that's all in here. In the resources areas where the SolarWinds Certified Professionals group is, so if you wanted to look at that for more information. And then they also have their SolarWinds Online Academy, which is in their Success Center. And the Success Center is sort of like a KB. They have all their old KB articles were moved into the Success Center. All of the admin guides, any documentation that they've published is all located in their Success Center. And the SolarWinds Academy is specifically geared towards preparing you for the certification exams and towards you know, learning how to use your products better. So they have a whole certification section in here where you can kind of study their guides. They've got sample questions, as well as kind of just general information of what you're going to need to know. And then they also have their virtual classroom and other instructional videos and that kind of thing in the academy. Everything is there. So that is kind of where you would go if you were looking for study material. Is those 2 places is your best bet for study material that has already been published. And I would recommend mostly just going in and kind of fooling around and seeing how things operate as far as the NPM and CM modules go. For those 2 exams, you kind of, there's a lot of general Orion operability questions. So, you know, how certain accounts work, information about their agents and that kind of thing. So I learn best by hands-on. So, you know, if you don't have a lab environment or something, you know, throw up a VM, set yourself up a little bit of a lab and go ham on it, go mess around, go figure out how things work, learn how the you know, permissions work, learn how to add things in there and that kind of thing. That's your best bet for understanding it and you know, maintaining that information in your brain is kind of just doing some hands-on work. And there's a lot of information out there, but as in any certification exam ever, it's all very dry. So it can be kind of boring to just sit and read guides and read through exam preparation materials and that. So I recommend, you know, setting yourself up a VM that you can mess around on and kind of get some hands-on and make it a little more interactive for learning.
And I am going to go ahead and take the controls back. And on that note, just as far as learning materials and different stuff, I did want to mention that Loop 1 actually is going to have an NPM SCP exam training August 28th and 29th. So that is coming up. If you're interested at all in taking the exam, you can actually click that link and register with us to study up, and every registration for the class actually comes with a voucher for one of the SCP tests. So if you take the training with us, then you will get a voucher to take that test, which is about a $200 value. So we're really excited about that class and hope to see some of you guys there. And thank you guys for y'all's experience. That was a really great overview. But at this point, we are going to kind of switch gears and talk about the topic of the hour, Thwack. For those of you that don't know.
Before we go, hold on. Before we go, sorry. Can we go back one slide?
Yes, absolutely.
So I wanted to say something about the training because I've actually delivered trainings like this. We have like a 201 and a 101 and a 301. So we've got various layers of training, but I've taken trainings like this and I've taught them. And when I've taken trainings like this, sometimes there's technical issues, VMs that don't want to work, all kinds of problems. And I've watched the instructor kind of flounder with trying to fix the technical issues while we're in the midst of training, and it's been really frustrating. And I felt like, you know, why am I paying for this, you know, troubleshooting time? You should have been better prepared, what, you know, yada, yada. The really nice thing about the way that we do things is it's not just the instructor that you're working with, it's the instructor and the Loop 1 mind. So in that you've got Ben Penny, who is amazing. He's our IT guy. Anytime there's any bump or hiccup with any technical thing, I shoot a message off real quick. We go to something else and he handles it behind the scenes. It's like magic. If I have any issues or we have any questions from anybody in the class, you don't watch me research the problem in front of you. I mean, sometimes that's good for education, but sometimes it's just somebody has a question and they lack an answer. I shoot it off and it, you know, a hive of engineers will chime in on it. And the next time I look back, I've got, you know, 3 or 4 different answers. So it's really an amazing experience being able to teach a class and being so supported by the people that I'm working with that it's just effortless. It's like I'm there to deliver the information. I don't have to know everything. I don't have to worry about, you know, oops, is this VM for this student gonna behave? I've got lots of support. So I feel like it's one of the best prepared. I mean, like I said, I've taken a lot of classes and I've seen a lot of areas for improvement. And I feel like when we find those, I think it's got enough mileage, or we've got enough mileage training and imparting that kind of information that it goes super smooth. But anyway, that's all I want to say.
If you've ever done a CCNA boot camp where they come on site
Yes.
and have issues with equipment and then have to ship new stuff in, you know what he's talking about.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
I wasn't going to say the C word, but yes.
Yes, well, that's an excellent point. And, you know, as always, we do consider ourselves experts in training. So we definitely would recommend, obviously, if you are looking for that to come through us. So
Yeah, definitely.
So we are going to start talking about the topic of the hour, THWACK. It's what most of you are here for. And so for those of you that don't know what Thwack is, it's the social platform that's offered by SolarWinds, and it's for all SolarWinds users. So if you have any part of the platform or the suite, then you are available to jump onto Thwack, and it's really, really great. So it's been described as a virtual oasis of anything you could possibly want to know about SolarWinds products or issues you're having. You can mingle with other SolarWinds users, download templates and user guides, and even bounce, ideas off the community for anything that you're thinking. If you aren't already on Thwack, I definitely suggest that you go and make an account. And as I have previously mentioned, each of our panelists today is also a Thwack MVP. So here they are in all of their glory, and this is where you can find them on Thwack and see all the amazing answers that they've put out into that community for everybody. So now they're going to talk to you about how they became Thwack MVPs and, some best practices, some things that they've learned over the years, and let you guys know how you can really utilize Thwack to its fullest.
Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure. I do want to add to what Courtney was saying about Thwack being, I have to say it's one of the most interactive and best communities out there as far as anything that I've dealt with in a technical community. The product managers over at SolarWinds are involved, developers are on there and they're involved. Their community management is fantastic. And the Thwack MVPs, other than ourselves, we're all very involved, and you can always find your answers, or other people with common problems that are looking at that, or other people who've thought of some crazy thing that you would never have thought of, but you're like, wow, that looks amazing, I want that. And it's, it's all free, which is fantastic. So free and in a good way, not a free and in a bad way, but free and in a good way. So it's a fantastic community and I love it. So my story as how I became a Thwack MVP and how I got involved in all this crazy shenanigans is when I started working for Loop One 7.5+ years ago, I spent, in order to learn how to use SolarWinds to the best of capabilities, I spent an immense amount of time on Thwack. And within 6 months, I was asked to be an MVP, and it was fantastic. I spent a ton of time just in the community, finding questions to answer, starting with small things because I was still very new and very green, and I didn't have a lot of knowledge. I've got crazy too much amounts in my head now, but back then I didn't really know a whole lot. I knew NPM and I stuck with NPM. I was always in NPM. That's where I lived, and I answered questions, and researching answers to questions helped me to learn more and helped me to get better at my job, and then get better with the product so I could help other people more. And I love it. I love helping people out. I love getting in there and seeing some crazy, especially now I see some crazy ones out there that are like custom SQL, and they're like, why isn't this working? And then I want to go jump into it. I want to go look at it. I want to learn. I want to figure out how to fix it. I want to help these people. And it's super fantastic, so interactive, and it's great. And that's the story of how I became a Thwack MVP. It really is just getting all the way in it, and I've maintained my status by staying in it because I genuinely love the community, and it's so supportive, and any questions you have can be answered out there. And there, questions, comments, you want to share a misery story, they've got a whole subsection on Thwack where you can share your misery stories of things that have gone horribly wrong. And it happens. It's software. It's not always going to work perfectly. It's not always going to be amazing. Everything's not going to always be perfect. And yeah, just sharing stories and getting fixes and helping each other out, and feature requests. Feature requests are huge. It's just fantastic. That's basically my story.
And Crystal you had shared a story with me recently of a person that you came across on Thwack that was having some issue creating an alert that he needed because he was limited by a drop down, and you
yes
do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So he was having some struggles with a custom SQL alert that he was trying to take care of. And the thing about the way that SolarWinds does custom custom SQL or custom SWCL alerts, which is the SolarWinds query language, is that it forces you to start from a certain place. So if you are alerting on nodes, for instance, you have to start with a pre-built part that selects node ID and node name or node caption from nodes. You have to start there. So then you have to build your query from there instead of starting from scratch. So if you have built something and it's not working, that is probably why. Not everybody understands how to work with it very well. So I did help him. I actually wrote 2 queries because I wasn't entirely sure. He was using some custom properties and things. I wasn't entirely sure if the first one was going to work properly. And the second one worked worked better for him, but I included all that information in there. And it was great. Worked perfectly for him and got him through his issue that he was having.
Awesome. See, that's the kind of really awesome stuff that happens on a regular basis on Thwack, and why we really, really wanted to feature it in this webinar and have these guys share their expert knowledge with everyone so everyone can get the most out of the platform. So Steve, how about you? You want to talk to us about how you became an MVP?
Sure. So I started, I was doing SolarWinds engagements before I joined Loop One. So I was with another company for 7.5 years. So I traveled all over the country and did installs, configs like our engineers do. And then when I joined Loop One in 2013, I was 100% remote. So now I do their development. So all the integrations, programming, that kind of thing. But from the beginning all the way up to now, I've done like Crystal and just kind of help people when they have problems. And the things I sort of gravitated toward were like the reporting and alerting, because of those sometimes taking the idea of what you want to alert on and making it something that will work in the software. You've got to, think very logically about it. That really appealed to me. And there was a lot of people, saying, hey, I'm trying to do something crazy with like, the last 5 CPU samples. If 3 of them are over a certain number, I want it to alert, And so I had written myself a filter for the RSS feed, I think, so that I was only getting questions that mentioned alerting or reporting, so I could really jump on those quick, because it was, it's first come, first serve, They do bribe us with Thwack points. We'll talk about that later, but I really wanted those a lot. So I'd have it alert me, so it'd pop up on my monitor so I could go help. But I'm responsible, but I'm the reason the alert and the alert lab and the script lab exist for each of the products, because I was saturating the forums with those kinds of solutions. And they're like, we should probably make a separate section for this. So they took all of my alert stuff and they moved it into their own little alert lab and script lab, or alert lab and report lab. Sorry, those are the 2. But I just have a lot of fun with it. I've worked with other forums. I'm not going to name any names, but I mean, there's like a blend of good and bad and nastiness, and you just don't see that on Thwack. It's just really positive. People are there to help. You see a lot of the same people responding. Obviously, some of those become MVPs. They recognize, who's helping out the most. But I mean, it's not just MVPs that are answering either. It's everybody, will chime in and say, oh yeah, I had that problem or whatever. But no, it's a great place. SolarWinds has an API. I don't know if we're ever going to talk about that, but there's some programming potential. And so they have a whole section of the Thwack forum that's dedicated to development. So SDK, API, that kind of thing. And they also have a GitHub account, a GitHub repository. So sometimes when someone has a problem and they want, some programming done, I'll answer the request with the code that they need. But then I'll also post it to the repository so it's in among the samples. So as people go and look and need examples how to do things, they've got those. So.
Yeah.
And Charles, how about you? What's your story? How did you get this coveted MVP status?
Well, I guess mine might be a little similar to Crystal's. I got thrown into a monitoring environment after a role shift and a move from the service desk. I got thrown into data voice operations and monitoring, and found myself on Thwack on a regular basis. looking for answers, ideas, how to do this, how to do that. I learned two things: how to monitor, how to work with SolarWinds, and I also learned networking at the same time, being able to see everything, and then also learning devices. Had to learn things quick. Early on, got a Nexus IP, or a series of IPs from an engineer, and he said, "Here, I need these switches monitored," and it turned out to be separate context on a Nexus box, which hosed the box. Had to figure out what was going on, and that day I learned not only a lot about SolarWinds, but a lot about Nexus. And the constant back and forth, the feedback, the reply, giving the status, and then participating in the missions. Again, I was a fiend for points like Steven. I want him to bring back a couple of prizes because I have enough points for them now. So
yeah, they're gone.
It's all a process, and it adds to the fun in my mind. The community alone is nothing but positive. Anytime I've seen a negative post, it was immediately met with, somebody that cared, and usually a response from whoever had the initial reply. In most of the cases, it's just a misunderstanding. And I've only seen that one or two times in my 6.5 years on the site. It's just not a commonality like it is for other places. And as you get involved and as you get to interact with people, and then if you become an MVP or find yourself at a SWAG and interacting with these people in person, things just get closer and the community gets tighter. That's the nice thing about it. Then you can go who and ask who you need help from, figure out who's aligned with a similar position as you are, or just in general, ask your friends to bump up your ideas when you do create a feature request.
Yep.
And on that note, I would definitely suggest, if you haven't already, everybody that's tuned in, go and follow these three guys on Thwack, because they can, between the three of them, could probably solve anything that comes up, or will definitely try. So here are their Thwack handles, and definitely go follow them. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and put up our last poll real quick before we keep talking a little bit more about Thwack and what you can do with it, and some of the do's and don'ts that these guys have learned. But first, let's see how many of you out there are Thwack MVPs already. Do we have other greats amongst us in the midst? Some we do, yeah. There are actually a couple more. It looks like we have like 15% are Thwack MVPs. So congratulations to you guys as well for getting that status. It's awesome. So yeah, if you guys want to kind of talk about, if you panelists want to kind of talk about, we have about 10 more minutes in this section to go over like do's and don'ts, or maybe some more stories of like people that actual accounts that you've interacted with, or anything like that, or any friends that you've made, or anything that you want to share with us would be great.
Sure. I do want to bring it kind of full circle with, they were mentioning the points that you get. And you get points for almost any interactions that you have on Thwack, unless it's a direct message, you don't get anything for that. But almost anything else you do, you can get points for. But the points, they have a store that they keep updated, and it's just, it's just silly gear, it's SolarWinds and Thwack themed buttons and backpacks, and their bags are actually really great. I have every single one of the bags that they have put out there. But what they recently did to bring it full circle all the way around to the beginning of this thing, they recently added the option to purchase your SCP exam with Thwack points. I think it's 60,000. So you got to work for it, but you can actually purchase the cost for your SCP exam with Thwack points. So just another incentive to get out there and get active on the community. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, do's and don'ts, I would say, don't give people incorrect answers just to get points. That's definitely not the spirit of the community. We want to be helpful, and definitely be active, interactive, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There are all kinds of, people don't like to ask the easy questions or things like that. Do it. go check. Somebody probably already has asked, or they've already looked to do a thing. You can easily find it. There's no need to reinvent the wheel on things. There's all kinds of content shared out there. Share your content when you create something cool. I recently had a friend that posted a really cool new dashboard idea, and it was just, you know, it's all scripted on the back end, and it looks fantastic. It's like a heat map of CPU utilization, and it looks fantastic. So he shared it out there, and you know, you like it, you like it. You don't like it, you don't have to use it. But it's great. It's a great place to share, you know, what you're working on and be proud of what you're doing, because the community is so supportive. So definitely share. Definitely don't give wrong answers. Please don't do that, because then we have to come correct you, and we don't want to.
No.
Call you out. Yeah, it kind of goes back to that idea of collective intelligence that we were talking about earlier, that, you know, Thwack is a very tangible example of the collective intelligence of everybody in the SolarWinds community and a lot of the Loop One people that we have as well. So definitely great information.
Yeah, there's a place to talk about every different piece of their product line. So they have a section for it. And feature requests, I was going to say, so they're actually, the product management team is very interactive with the community, and they do monitor those feature requests. So if you're looking for something new to be added to the default monitoring, or if you are looking for additional monitoring for whatever, Active Directory or something, you want something to be kind of the default, add it in there. If you think something doesn't work properly, or if you think it could work better, put a feature request out there. People will vote on it, and SolarWinds is watching. So they definitely take into account the community feedbacks, and I will say the feature requests are fantastic. They never, of course, are going to guarantee that anything's going to make it in there, but they do watch. They are watching, so
Absolutely.
keep an eye out.
The purchasing of your SCP exam now with the Thwack points is a direct response to the community as well. So with the feature requests, with everything that's put on there, they keep track of it. There's a high response with the SolarWinds crew. They are very active and share everything that you can. The ideas, the templates. You'll never know what somebody else will need. If you need it, there is at least one other person that does need it as well. So all the same, if you share, then somebody else is more apt to share theirs, and in turn, you'll find something that you never knew you needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the sharing point, also don't share proprietary information. I'll throw that out there. You know, don't share your IP addresses.
Scrub
don't
your
share your
screenshots.
username. Yeah, scrub your screenshots before you put them out there. So not everybody remembers to do that, but I recommend it.
Yeah. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Fun. Okay. So going back to what Charles had said about, I don't remember what he said, but I read a note saying SolarWinds is not afraid. Oh, he was saying negative stuff. So when negative things have been posted to Thwack, it's been either, in the rare case, trolling, and they get rid of that immediately. But sometimes it's honest criticism, where it's like, this piece of SolarWinds software doesn't do what I want it to do, or doesn't do what I expect. And with other companies, sometimes that's met with crickets, and there is no response. And that's not the case with SolarWinds. They're they're unafraid to, you know, come out and say, okay, yeah, that does look like it's not working the best way, or do you have a suggestion on how you think it ought to work? And their UX team is very active. So if you have any feedback about, you know, this process doesn't feel right to me, or like these colors are strange, or I mean, literally anything, they've got a whole group of people that will interview you. Ton of points come from that. So if you're after the Thwack points, that's a huge source of Thwack points.
It's actually 3,000
yeah.
Thwack points anytime you do a UX session. So it's definitely worth your while.
And they are very friendly.
Yes.
They want to hear everything you have to say.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I will say too, Steve, to your point about the criticism, they also do not remove it. So even after it has been resolved, or they've already talked to that person or anything like that, they don't take it down from the forum. It's still there. You could go back years and years and years and find criticism in there. They don't take it down. They're not trying to hide that they've had problems, for sure.
Yep, absolutely. So that's a really nice thing. The Thwack gear, I own all of it pretty much, everything except the refrigerator. It is all of a great quality. Do's and don'ts when you're posting the Thwack. You didn't come to Thwack to ask questions without trying something. You probably tried to do something and it didn't work, and then you tried something else and it didn't work. And then sometimes you want to go to Thwack and you're like, hey, I'm trying to do X, help, right? Without any context or any like, here's the 5 things I tried. Please tell us what you tried, right? That's going to help us, because we may say, hey, why don't you try this? And be like, oh, well, I tried that. That was the 3rd thing I tried. Just list them, even if it's not fully developed and you don't have like, steps that you try. Just be like, I tried X, Y, and Z. This is where I'm at. It still doesn't work. That really helps us. The other thing is when you do finally get an answer that works, mark it answered in the interface. That's huge. It helps the person who answered your question get more points. You do get more points for answering a question successfully. They do have an assumed answered setting now because that was a problem. But definitely once you get your answer, definitely mark it, my question's answered.
It helps people in the future as well for when they're having this similar problem. If they find that post, they know they can immediately see the answer that was marked as helpful or marked as correct.
Totally. And one of the things that puts me off of forums like Thwack is this idea that if I come and ask a question, if it's been answered already, that I'm going to get completely flamed, right? They don't do that. If somebody knows the answer someplace else, for the sake of time, they'll say, like, hey, go check out this post. And again, to Crystal's point, they don't delete them. So if you use a combination of words that got you to a particular question that made sense for that person, and the answer is go look at this other post, no harm, no foul. They don't delete them to clean up space. It's just that pressure of like having to exhaustively search for my answer before I post just doesn't exist. So it's really nice. Content exchange, huge. If you have stuff you can contribute, tons of points for that. And I want to say something about the way Loop One handles our sharing of information. A lot of companies, especially consulting companies, will be very tight, strict about what you can share, what the engineers can share. And we've always been encouraged to share literally everything. If we've created something and it's useful, we're encouraged to go put it out on Thwack for everybody. We don't hoard information. So I've never worked at a place that was like that. And yet we still have tons of business. So it's not like, it's like, oh, you share your information, you share your knowledge, and you're not going to have any more of it, or you're going to be, you're going to starve next month. It works the other direction. The more you share, the more, people appreciate and they come back for more. And it works really well. And Loop One's been really generous that way. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's been nice.
Part of our Loop One mind thought process and our engineered insights that we want to just help everybody use their SolarWinds products or other IT products that they may be having difficulties with the best that they can.
Totally.
Well, Charles, do you have anything else you want to share, or any of the other engineers, or y'all are developers and don't want to leave anybody out?
I would say just continue to be active on Thwack. As much as IT changes, like Steven says, we're constantly sharing information, ideas, setups. But as much as IT changes, the need changes, and with that, there's an adjustment. There's honing in or a reconfiguration of the setup so that we can get whatever detail or whatever piece of information that we need to get when we need to look at it a different way to be able to capture that picture, that data, so we can alert or report from that angle. We certainly do that. And when the information sharing stops, then, well, the help kind of stops. So we continue to share information. And with that, I don't think we're going to stop anytime soon because the need constantly changes. So
Yeah.
there's really no way to combat that unless you just put yourself into the cycle, because if you're not in the cycle, then you're outside the cycle and not participating.
Right.
Yep. Yep, and the software changes as much as IT changes. So there's new features all the time that you got to learn how to use. And definitely people out there who are experimenting with it to use it differently than you think it ought to be used.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys so much. That was really a great discussion, and I think that if we do have some people out there that aren't as familiar with Thwack, that they might have a much better grasp. And again, we really encourage you to, one, make a Thwack account, and two, follow all these guys and reach out with any questions that you guys may have. So speaking of questions, we have a couple questions or comments. Mark Netterfield, who is actually part of the Loop One family, had mentioned that he had a little bit of difficulty with the proctoring process as well, and had to clean his wife's desk off. So that's funny. And then, definitely from Will Luther, he said that Thwack is a gateway forum, I guess, meaning that you can spend a lot of time on there.
Will would say that. Those two are also MVPs, Courtney.
Yes, very much so. And then he also asked about a dark theme, which I know Tulsi over in UX would probably roll her eyes, but
yeah.
Team dark theme.
Team dark theme.
Dark themes, yes. So I guess if any of you do UX session of any sort, then definitely mention the dark theme. They never hear
Every
it.
time.
Yeah.
Every time. That's exactly right.
And then we had one last one of someone was wondering if they want to branch out with other products in the SolarWinds suite, the best way to kind of start doing that and start learning about those different products, if y'all had any success with that in the past.
So Crystal had mentioned just firing up a VM. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Charles.
I was going to say the same thing. Install it,
Yeah.
open it up, and get to know it.
So installing it is one thing, but then if you're just installing it, say on your local machine, in any Windows machine will do. It's really flexible, especially since the evaluation for all of them installs SQL Express, right? A little bitty SQL database. The next thing you want to add inventory, but that's a problem if you're looking around your office and literally it's your desktop and your PC. So there is an application called GNS3 that will let you basically create a virtual network of routers and switches. It's very, very cool. And it's free. And I think SolarWinds partnered with them, didn't they? Maybe. Oh, yeah. So yeah, check out GNS3. You can basically create your own little virtual network.
Yeah, just mess with it.
Mess with it. There's also the Orion demo, which there's portions of it you can't configure. Obviously, you can't mess with the demo, but it does show you what the dashboards look like, and clicking around the dashboards and getting a feel for how the software is laid out. And they've got every single module installed, and not just the Orion suite, but also there's a LEM, Login Event Manager demo. Database Performance Analyzer demo, fully functional demos that you can click around and just do a lot of stuff with for free. So try it, you'll like it.
Yeah, try it, you'll like it.
Try new things, embrace the change.
That's right.
Yeah, I will say too about the demo, there's also like a walkthrough in the demo. So anytime they add new features to the product, if you are curious, when they update the demo, then you will see it added to the walkthrough so that they can talk to you about their new features. So if you wanted to see new features in action without updating yours because you don't want to update the production, or if you don't have a lab or a demo environment that you can mess with, you can check out their demo. They usually add it to the walkthrough. So they're pretty good about doing that. But other than that, being involved in the community, you can go to the different sections of the forum and kind of see how people are dealing with things. Like I said earlier, there's a place for every one of their products. Every single module of Orion, every single bit of their products is all in there. So there's always people in there talking about things that they've learned how to do with it. So if you're interested in seeing what you can do, kind of checking that out and seeing what people do outside of the default configuration is going to be in Thwack. So if you're curious to see that kind of stuff, that's where you'll see it.
And if you do need, a little bit of a deeper dive than what they have available on Thwack, Loop One does offer in-class and on-site training for most of the SolarWinds product suite. So if that's something you're interested in, you can always go to our website and look at those training dates as well.
And one more thing about the training that we, all the trainings, not just the not just the SCP prep courses, but all the trainings we do have everybody gets their own VM. So it's very hands-on, and that's very, very cool. You're not just watching somebody go through the steps and trying to retain it. You're actually going through the process yourself. So pretty fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else for our audience before we wrap up here?
I'm ready for a nap.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, so I will say real quick, I do work for, I don't work on the training side of the house. I work on the Mino services side of Loop One House. And we do a little bit more flexible way of training. So typically our clients purchase more long-term contracts, and then if they're interested in a new product, then we can show it to them either on like a VM or something like that. But we maintain, so even if somebody you're talking to over the phone isn't super familiar with it, and there's somebody on the Loop One staff that is more well versed in it, and we all help each other out, part of that Loop One mind. So anytime you interact with anybody from Loop One, they've got somebody on the back burner that can help out if they're at their end of their rope. They've reached the end of their knowledge. They can reach out and get assistance from someone else, which is great.
Very true.
Awesome. Very true. Very true. Well, thank you guys for joining us for the panel, and we thank everybody who was in attendance. Just a reminder that we are going to be emailing you a recording of this in case you want to refer back to anything, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of our MVPs or anyone in the Loop One staff directly, and we'd be happy to answer that question for you. And I will invite you guys to take a quick survey at the end of the webinar just to let us know kind of how we did, and also let us know what type of content you would like to see in the future. So thank you guys again for being here, and we hope that you tune into our next webinar, and have a great afternoon. Bye.
Take care.
Take care. Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm.